Jerry Jones just simply can't afford Derrick Henry is what he said. Did you hear that, by the way?
No.
That's what he said in one of the interviews after the game. He just couldn't afford Derrick Henry. Don't know what the question was to that, but the fact that he even said that period was...
They asked him what he had for breakfast this morning, and he said, I can't afford Derrick Henry. Get off my back.
Welcome in, Sports Bluff family. Thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this week's Week 3 breakdown. The games kind of went status quo for the most part. There's a couple of one-offs here that we'll talk about tonight, but I do want to get your take on Week 3 in general. How do you feel after Week 3 ended?
My general Week 3 take is kind of similar to my general Week 2, which is really don't know who a lot of these teams are, and there doesn't seem to be a dominant team. It's just like after, you think there's a team kind of putting themselves above everybody, and they get brought back to earth this week. There's a couple undefeateds, obviously, but it feels like the league is really waiting for someone to grab it by the throat and take control. No one's done that yet.
Yeah. That's very violent, but you're correct, though. As soon as you think that there's a team, like the Texans, that are just above and beyond, they crash and burn. And we'll talk about more of that later, but it does seem like Week 3, there's still a question mark at the end. And going into Week 4, I'm not super confident in any one team. And I can't remember a season in recent past that I'm not super confident on at least one team. Like the only team right now, and it's still pending because as of the recording now, Sunday night, we haven't seen the 2 Monday games. And one of those teams is the Bills that play tomorrow night. And they may be that team. Now, as a Bills fan, I was really down on the Bills at the preseason. But as it's looking right now, they're the only team that so far has had a pretty easy go of it.
Yeah, they look fantastic. I thought they would look good. They look even better than I thought they would because they finally have a run game. They finally have an offensive identity built around the run. Obviously, we'll see what they do on Monday night. But it's just, I think, by the way, still good, still enjoy it. Chiefs-Falcons was a great game. There were good games today. It's just... teams are still figuring out who they are. When you don't play in the preseason, you don't get to practice a lot. You don't get to hit each other. It takes a few weeks to get up to speed. You're starting to feel that. We're dealing with the injuries. As more injuries happen and these rosters start to shake out, we'll really get a feel for who these teams are. But the good thing is, unless you're 0-3, you're not out of it. And the league's kind of wide open right now. I can't wait to see where it goes and who's going to plant their flag as real contenders.
Right now, there's 4 3-0 teams, not counting the Monday night games, so the Bills may join that and make it 5. But if you're a 3-0 team, it's a hot commodity right now. Let's move into a team that I want to discuss who is not 3-0. Tristan, the Eagles win despite the struggles, despite Sirianni's delusional decisions sometimes.
Perfect.
Do you believe in the Eagles more or less after this game?
It's so hard because I want to
question.
Yeah, it really is. I want to walk the fence so much on it because it feels like the fact that they won this game was big. So I kind of feel like they can play with anybody and they can win. But also at any moment, Sirianni will throw the game away. And I've been kind of back and forth. We'll see. Obviously, last season didn't like how it ended. He's a bad coach, man. What does he do? And did you see the clip after Saquon broke the big run and got a touchdown where Sirianni literally went over on the sidelines and was like hugging him and holding him? You could tell that Sirianni was like, oh, you're saving my job. It feels like he is getting bailed out by his players because Roseman has built a pretty solid roster and Sirianni doesn't contribute. He passed up 2 field goals early in this game that I thought for sure were going to bite them. The first one, when they went for it on 4th down, you could argue and say, maybe, okay, whatever. The second one, there was no argument. Yeah, no argument. You could have had 6 points in a game where no one was scoring points. It was Saints up by 3 points. You could have took the lead, and Sirianni just can't get out of his own way. Jalen Hurts isn't playing great.
7 penalties.
7 penalties. They're sloppy. My answer is no. I believe in him less because I don't know what I'm getting for week to week, and I don't trust the coach, and I don't really trust the quarterback. I'm talking negative about a team that won, but man, they're just, I don't know who they are.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I know they didn't have A.J. Brown. I know Devontae Smith. I think he got, a concussion?
He got a concussion. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, so I don't know. Was that third quarter?
I think so. My third or fourth. It was later.
Yeah, so I know you could argue those points, but still the coaching decisions of not taking the 2 easy field goals that could have put this game kind of out of reach for the Saints, and you wouldn't have had to battle down to the wire like you did and barely win the game. You're playing a super talented team at home. When you look at this division, you have the Eagles, you have the Commanders, the Giants, and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are the least of my concern right now. We'll talk about them soon. But the Commanders and the Giants, is there any world where the Giants step into that first place in this division?
No, absolutely not.
So you still think the Eagles are the walking dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Eagles are going to benefit. Like the Cowboys could beat them in a game. Absolutely, it's possible. But the Eagles should win this division, so they should find a way into the playoffs if everything goes according to plan. But it might be a lot like last year where they get into the playoffs and they just get bounced. Right now, the Saquon Barkley signing is the move of the offseason because, Ryan, without him, what is Philadelphia? He is single-handedly saving their season. I know he dropped the pass last week. Okay, he made up for it here. He had 17 carries for 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had the 65-yard run that really broke the game open and handed it to the Eagles. Like, he kind of won the game for him. It wasn't Hurts.
That's true. Do you think that Hurts is as good of a quarterback as he was, 2 years ago, 2 years removed from the Super Bowl run? Do you think he is as good as he is now than he was then, or do you think it's the coaching and the weapons around him that's making him seem like less of a superstar on the field?
No, he's definitely regressed. Now, coaching is a part of it because Shane Steichen left. So he's lost Shane Steichen. He's got Kellen Moore, who's a good offensive coordinator, but he's not the quarterback guru that Steichen is. I mean, we've seen that. It's a big regression, and it seems like it's back to Jalen Hurts before Steichen. Jalen Hurts in college, he'll make some big plays for you, but then he'll make really dumb decisions. I mean, he didn't even have a touchdown pass in this game. He was 29 for 38, 311 yards. Okay, a lot of yards. He threw it 38 times. No touchdowns, 1 interception. He got 4 sacks. He ran it for 25 yards on 8 carries. What really is worrying me about Hurts, I know A.J. Brown's out, but it seems that his performance really nosedives when Brown's not playing. That's just the fact. Even though he has Smith, I know Goddard stepped up in this game. Hurts is bailing out of the pocket way too soon, and you're immediately cutting your vision to half the field, and he's making bad decisions a lot of the time. It feels like you're walking a tightrope with him, and I don't love that at all.
Lucky for the Eagles, you may see them be a little inflated come the next few weeks, and I'll tell you why. It's because next week they have Tampa Bay, and that could be a winnable game for them. Then they go on an early bye, week 5, but then they come back to a run of games where they should win every one of them. The Browns, the Giants, at the Bengals, the Jags. The Bengals may give them trouble. We'll see tomorrow night after the Bengals play how they look and how they shake out, because there's a question mark on the team. It's the Bengals for me. We don't know how T. Higgins is going to play. We don't know how long he's going to play, how long he's going to stay healthy. So there's a bunch of question marks to be answered there, but also the Browns, the Giants, and the Jags. Then you go into the Cowboys at the Cowboys in week 10. Do you see them going into the Cowboys, with at least 3 of those, or even 4 of those 5 games won?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the Eagles are one of those teams that I feel like, despite the coaching decisions, but despite the erratic quarterback play, I do feel like they have the talent to where they can beat anybody. I think they can beat anybody. I mean, they should have beat Atlanta. They were able to beat New Orleans, who started off the season hot. I think Philadelphia, and they beat the Packers. So they find ways to win football games because they have a good roster. It's so up and down. You feel like that's going to bite you at some point. Hopefully it doesn't bite you at the wrong time though. But they're one of those teams that could beat anybody, but I kind of feel like they could lose to anybody too.
That's exactly right. For Sirianni's sake, I hope that they do win these games. He needs them to. But also, I feel like one of these games, these easy win games, they're going to fumble the ball somehow, no pun intended, and mess up and lose the game in a very winnable game situation, like against the Giants or something.
Yeah, just like they did with Atlanta. Yeah.
And if that happens, then Sirianni's hot seat conversation becomes a point of topic. It really does to me.
I don't think there's any way Sirianni survives this season. I think he will coach the entire season. I don't think he's going to be fired midseason. The roster's too good. The team is still too good. The team is better than him. They shouldn't have brought him back. There's no way he's the coach of the Eagles next year, though.
That's the thing. And I know we need to move on from this. But
no, go ahead.
Sirianni, when you say that the roster's too good, like they won't fire him, I argue in a different world, I guess, because I think that if your roster is that good and you get them to be, close to the best they can be, but don't get them over that hump to make it to the big time to win a Super Bowl, I think that's when you should fire the coach. And I know that goes against all NFL status quo, but do you see what I'm saying? That's the whole reason I got on board the Sean McDermott train, because I don't think he can take us to a Super Bowl. So I'd rather say, let's go ahead and oust him, bring in somebody who can take Josh Allen to that next step, and bring him to the Super Bowl. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's kind of a false equivalency just because Jalen Hurts isn't Josh Allen. Like, in that situation, you have a profound quarterback you can completely rely on. Jalen Hurts, you can't. You need someone that can get the most out of him.
But you get the team. Because you have Saquon now, you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have one of the best offensive rosters in the league.
Right. But to counter that, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I kind of agree with you, the defense roster has taken a step back. The defensive line isn't what it was in the Super Bowl run. The secondary isn't what it was in the Super Bowl run. But with all this said, I'll try to package this, and I think you'll agree. I think Sirianni would buy himself a lot more time if it wasn't for last season. I honestly don't even know if we'd be talking about Sirianni if it wasn't for the collapse last season where they lost 7 of their last 8 games and showed up in Tampa in a playoff game and did not want to be there. And we never got an explanation. Like, it's like he lost the locker room. Somehow he was able to gain it back in the offseason, but that is why he doesn't have a long leash. Because of what happened last year, when you see them playing up and down like they are now, you just don't have a lot of faith that he's going to right the ship, because what the hell does he do around there?
All right, Tristan, well, we exhausted the Eagles and Sirianni as much as we possibly could. Let's move on to the team they were facing on the other side of the ball, the New Orleans Saints, who I thought had a pretty easy win this week. I was wrong. Does this expose the Saints in this loss?
Expose is a tough word, interesting way to put it. I think kind of, yes, because the hype around Derek Carr, around the team, was getting a little too big. I didn't buy into it. That's why I picked the Eagles, even though I didn't like it. One of the only picks, by the way, it's not like I can brag about picks, but that's the only one I got, and I'm going to enjoy my moment while I have it. The rest of the show's downhill. I do think it kind of exposed them. Not that they're still a very good team, but it's clear the Saints have to play and win a certain way. The Saints have to run the football a lot and successfully. They have to run the football to build play action passes so they can pass off a play action, and they really need to play from a lead. That's what we've seen in the first 2 games. They've been able to run the ball really well, pass off of the run, play from a lead, and when they do that, they can kind of control the game and really dictate the flow of the game. They weren't able to do that here. Alvin Kamara, 26 carries for 87 yards. That's only 3.3 a carry. No other running back was even relevant. Derek Carr was not good in this game. 14 for 25, 142 yards, a touchdown, and the pick at the end of the game, which sealed it, a really bad pick. That's kind of who Derek Carr has always been. If you're in a comfortable situation, if things are, going according to the game script, he's pretty good. But when things get rocky and he has to make plays outside of the scheme, it just doesn't go well. And I think we even said that last week. Either I said it or you said it. We were talking about we want to see the Saints in a tough game where they're having to play from behind or battle. And we saw that, and they did not look very good. So I think it kind of depends on the opponent. Did it expose them? Yes. Are they still a team that can, be a playoff contender? Absolutely. But they need games to go a certain way for them.
Yeah, and I think it really highlights the talent of the defenses they were facing in week 1 and week 2. You have the Carolina Panthers up first, and they demolished them.
Yeah, and Dallas has one of the worst rush defenses in the league.
and that's where I was coming to. We'll talk about that in just a couple more segments from here. But one thing I want to highlight is I think this was a great way for, if you had a question mark around the Saints, like, are they really this good? This was the game that brought them back down to reality. This was the game that put a very even matched defense and offense against their corresponding offense and defense. I think these two teams are very similar in some aspects. I do think the Saints, they are ranked as the first offense overall in all of NFL, according to PFF. So I still think this offense is very high-powered. In my opinion, I think they stuck with the run a little too much today. I think I texted you at one point and said, man, like, just throw the ball. Like, Derek Carr was having some success through the air, and I understand that they were, really gung-ho about giving Kamara the ball and getting him yards and all that, but I just think every time he ran the ball, it was just shut down. At some point, you have to pivot or at least throw some RPOs or something like that, but it was a very one-dimensional type offense today.
Right, but I think that's kind of what they are. I think they're a good offense. I think they have a good scheme, but I really do think it's all predicated on running the football and getting the defense in situations they don't want to be and controlling the game. I really think that's it. So, because you were like, man, I wish they quit running. I wish they'd throw the ball more. And I was like, yeah, but if they do that, I think it's going to go downhill, because you kind of saw that as the game progressed. When Derek Carr got into those must-throw situations, they're just not as good a team. They're easier to cover. Shaheed, he disappeared today. So they are explosive.
0 fantasy points for Shaheed.
Right. They can be an explosive team, but it all has to be going according to plan. Maybe, though, as the season progresses, they'll be able to iron that out and be able to, put on some points more at will. But they struggled to do that today. And if you have a defense that can kind of contain the run and make them play off balance and play from behind, I think you're going to be able to control them very well. The Saints' defense is going to be good. That's the saving grace. Their defense is so good, it's going to keep their offense in almost every game. Yeah,
for sure. The defense is the highlight of the Saints. Always has been, really, since we've been following football. They seem to just maintain a great defense all the time. But, I will say they have a pretty tough gauntlet coming up. They have the Falcons, divisional opponent, coming up next. Then they have the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Broncos, the Chargers, and then you play the Panthers again. So hopefully that you can find a win there. Maybe the Red Rocket throws you for a loop. I don't know. But I will say that in this division, I think you have one opponent that you have to really worry about after week 3, and that's Atlanta, just seeing how good they played the Chiefs tonight. And
really? You just write Tampa off that quick?
Yeah, we'll talk about that, but I think so.
No, we won't talk about it. We erased it.
Did we?
We threw that one out. We said, that ain't making the cut.
Let's just put this in here then. I do not think that Tampa Bay is as good as I thought they were. So I think they are the third best team in the NFC South right now, and I have no problem saying it. I don't think that if you don't have a running game in modern day NFL, you can't survive. And right now, White is not the guy. He's never been an in between the tackle runner. He's a pass catching running back. That's what he's used as, which they don't use him for that. So
correct.
Why even have him?
Well, we talked about that preseason.
Bucky Irving seems to be the guy for the in-between the tackle stuff, but they don't use him enough. So I think you would agree with me. If you don't have a running game in this NFL this year, especially, you can't make it far in the division. I just don't think you can.
No.
Because you look at every other team right here. Chuba Hubbard had a terrific game today. Maybe a little inflated, but I'm just saying he did. The Saints, you have Kamara. The Falcons, you have Bijan Robinson. You have these stud running backs who get yards every time they touch the ball. And I'm not putting Hubbard in the stud category yet.
I understand.
But today he was a stud. There's no way around that.
But Tampa doesn't have the real threat of being able to run the ball. If you say, hey, we're going to make Tampa beat us running the football, it's not going to happen. Whereas the Saints and the Falcons can do it, effectively. So I kind of agree. I definitely think it is the Saints and Falcons division to take. I think Tampa could maybe make things interesting, but luckily we get that matchup next week.
Right, that's true. And the flip side to that is, if you don't have a running game, you better have a good defense, to which the Bucs do not.
Okay, scale of 1 to 10, what's the concern level for the Saints after this loss?
Bringing it back to the Saints. I would say, like a 2 to 3. I'm not super concerned at all. I think they figured this out. As much as I hate to admit it, Dennis Allen seems to be a pretty decent head coach right now. It's subject to change. It's only week 3. But I think 2 to 3, if they don't figure it out by week 5 of how to utilize Derek Carr better in the games where the run script's not working, then it's definitely about a 7 or 8 then.
Yeah, let's see where New Orleans stands after the Kansas City game.
Sam Darnold was cooking all up and down the field against the Texans tonight. Look, this was one of those games where I had circled that it was going to be the Texans' way most of the time. And oh boy, was I incorrect. You could feel the absence of Joe Mixon. You could feel Brian Flores throwing up disguises left and right. You could feel C.J. Stroud looking like, huh? What do I do? This really exposed the Texans, in my opinion, and kind of made them sit back and realize, like, oh, maybe we don't have this figured out as much as we thought, because Nico Collins was non-existent in this game, as well as the rest of the offense for the Texans. How concerned are you about the Texans after this loss?
I think concern for the Texans, probably around a 5. I mean, solid concern, not freaking out, but this is just proof that the Texans have a lot they need to address. People were ready to crown them. Even me and you believed in them a little bit more. After we recorded our episode, I ended up betting with a friend. Me and him picked games, and I picked Minnesota because the more I thought about it, the more I, later in the week, because we record our picks on Wednesday, by the time we got to Friday, I was like, it just kept hanging around in my head that I was like, I think these Flores defensive schemes are going to give C.J. Stroud trouble. Now, I didn't think they were going to be blown out. I mean, it was not competitive.
No.
They couldn't do anything. C.J. Stroud looked like a rookie, and we saw him do it to Brock Purdy and the 49ers last week. The Vikings are for real. They are dangerous. Everyone better watch out. And I think the Texans' main issue is the offensive line. They are just struggling. We thought they'd be better than they are. They were up and down last year, but they're struggling this year, man. They are really struggling. And if you're able to hit them with some exotic blitzes, if you're able to get pressure and maintain coverage, you see it fall apart. I know you look at the score and you say 34-7. I feel like the Texans defense did a decent job. They held up. They held Minnesota to 14 in the first half. We talk about this all the time. When your defense is holding, and we look up in the third quarter and you haven't scored any points, at a certain point, they just wear down, man. The Texans have to address some things. They're still an AFC contender. I think they'll, right the ship, but they definitely have to go back to work.
Sam Darnold was 17 for 28, 181 yards, and 4 tutties to 4 different receivers, might I add. This was a big game for Sam Darnold, and you had texted me earlier because something happened to Darnold. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he took a sack or something. He didn't throw a pick
He tried
tonight.
to throw it when he was getting sacked. He tried to just do a Will Levis and sling the ball away. It almost got picked off.
To pull back the curtain for everybody, you texted me and said, well, there's the regression we were anticipating from Sam Darnold. And I guess he must have read that text, because after that, he went on fire. And I want to ask you, are you ready to retract that and say that Sam Darnold will not go through regression? We've actually found the real Sam Darnold under all the years of, mono and everything else?
No, it will happen. I think the regression will come at some point.
And is it just a game, or is it happens and then you see that downfall of Sam Darnold?
I think it will be multiple games, but I think you might be able to withstand the downfall. I don't think it's going to look like Jet Sam Darnold, but I think he is going to take a step back to earth. Because even though the numbers look good today, you started to see it. You know what I mean? If it's like an eggshell, if Sam Darnold is an egg, today it just got squeezed a little hard. It didn't break, but you saw some cracks start to appear in the egg. That's Sam Darnold. He's a broken egg.
I didn't know we were going to be squeezing Sam Darnold's eggs today on the show.
Well, I think he'd like it after that performance. He's probably tired. So Kevin O'Connell, man, he's one of the best coaches in the league. We see what good coaches are able to get out of quarterbacks. I think he's going to be a problem, but it's not like you're terrified of Sam Darnold. His numbers look better than he looked on tape. Now, obviously, I didn't watch this game super closely because it got out of hand, so I want to go back and watch the film. But I'm impressed with Sam Darnold. I'm impressed with Minnesota. I've always liked Kevin O'Connell. I think you just got to kind of watch both these teams and see what they take from it. Can the Minnesota offense continue to get better? That's what I want to see. Do they just kind of stabilize at this level and let everybody surpass them? Or are they able to keep developing, keep growing and getting better as the season progresses? The defense looks great. That was Minnesota's really Achilles heel last year, was their defense. And they look phenomenal. They are giving quarterbacks a run for their money. C.J. Stroud, got a welcome to the NFL today. And so Houston's going to have to address the offensive line. Minnesota's going to have to keep business as usual for the next few weeks.
C.J. Stroud, 2 interceptions, hit 8 times today.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones went 19 carries, 102 yards, and looked pretty good. And if there's a team that lets Aaron Jones look good, then, hey, that's a bad defense today. I think that the biggest crutch for the Texans today was missing Joe Mixon. Like, that was that it just shows you how big of a part I think Mixon is of this offense. And, you had Cam Akers come in, try to make up some ground, but 9 carries for 21 yards
it's
isn't
pathetic.
The type of ground you want to make up. You're actually losing ground at that point. Even though the yards are positive, there's still a big negative mark over you. And I remember, a couple years ago when everybody was just talking up Cam Akers, he is not an NFL caliber quarterback to be concerned about.
Well, he's a running back, so yeah. But
what did I say? Quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows what I'm talking about. He's the guy that has the ball and runs with it.
Well, he got injured, though. Remember when his rookie season or whatever? He never really has recovered. He's not as explosive as we all thought he was going to be.
Exactly. But Joe Mixon is. And you really see it exposed on this offense. Like, Joe Mixon at the Texans is the best Joe Mixon we've ever had.
Well, it's such a great point. I'm actually glad you stopped and mentioned this because I didn't touch on it, and you're right. Bobby Slowick's offense, similar to what we were talking about, it's kind of predicated off the run. He's going to run the football. He wants to establish a dominant run game and then build the pass around that. CJ Stroud starts to look dominant as they tear you up over the ground. When Mixon's out and they're not able to run, he tried. I mean, Slowick tried to run the football, but it was not happening against that defensive front. And you see how quickly the Texans' offensive game plan collapses. Similar to the Saints, and the Saints ran the ball way better than this. They have to have the run. Mixon has to get healthy. Without him, it's going to be a really long season.
Mike Tomlin has the Steelers rolling 3-0, one of only 4 teams as of right now, Sunday night, that remains undefeated. And look, Mike Tomlin, one of the greatest coaches of all time. No doubt about it. He's made things look better than they are supposed to multiple times in his career. He's opened up the season against some teams that aren't, they're not slouches by any means. Like the Falcons. He beat the Falcons 18-10. The Broncos 13-6. And now the Chargers 20-10 in their most, I think, impressive win. As far as how they looked on the field, I think this was the game where you saw the Steelers kind of come into their own and figure out everything. So is it time to take Fields seriously, just as serious as we take Mike Tomlin?
You added the qualifier on the end. As serious as we take Mike Tomlin, no. But yeah, it is time to take Justin Fields serious. And we thought he would look good in this Arthur Smith offense. Preseason, we both, I remember asking you, when do you think it is that Justin Fields will start? Because we thought Russell Wilson would start. We both said, I think, week 5, week 6, the Russell Wilson injury has opened it up for Justin Fields. There's no going back because Justin Fields, I'm telling you this, I know it's early. Chicago's looking over their shoulder. And I was a proponent of saying Chicago should draft Caleb Williams and move Justin Fields. But man, you see what a quarterback looks like when he's with a good offensive coordinator. And because say what you will about Arthur Smith, he's a good offensive coordinator, okay? And with a team that kind of believes in him and wants him, Justin Fields looks good. He's not just running around looking to scramble. He stood in the pocket today, Ryan. 25 for 32, 245 yards, a touchdown and a pick, multiple high-level quarterback throws where he stood in the pocket, went through his reads, moved off platform, reset his feet, and delivered dimes. It's not hyperbole to say I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how well Justin Fields is playing. And the thing is, with the Steelers, it's a defensive culture. It's a dominant defense, suffocates you, low-scoring team. When you have a quarterback that's just competent, that's just above average, and pair him with a good head coach, a good offensive coordinator, and a dominant defense, you can win as many games as you want. Justin Fields on this Steelers team is exactly what Mike Tomlin and Pittsburgh have been missing for years. I'm telling you, man, if I'm any other team in the league, I'm looking at the Steelers and getting a little worried.
Well, look, I didn't think that in week 3 we'd be sitting here and saying that the Steelers were atop the AFC North by a long shot.
Yes.
Tristan, it's not even close.
Nope.
Because every other team, guess how many wins they have? 1.
Single.
They have 1 win. The Bengals, who I know will play tomorrow night and hopefully will get a win.
Maybe.
But right now they have zilch, 0, nada. However many other ways you want to say the word 0, they have that many. The Steelers are a sneaky team to watch out for. They're one of those teams that at preseason, nobody gave them any hope, and they seem to be putting it together week after week. And that's a testament to this team, their belief in the team, and then also Mike Tomlin's marvelous, masterful coaching abilities. One thing I want to say about Justin Fields, we can't discredit who he has in his ear and at practice with him every single day. I think Russell Wilson is really helping this kid along, and I can call him kid because I'm almost 30. I think he's really helping him along, and I think you've seen the development of Justin Fields go leaps and bounds compared to where he was at Chicago just a year ago. And I think Russell Wilson has a lot to do with that. I believe that. I don't know. I haven't read the reports or anything, but just, if you ask me to blindly judge this, I think you can see some of the Russell Wilson qualities coming out in Justin Fields.
Well, it's interesting because I would almost feel like he played more Wilson-like before. Like, I've been surprised at his willingness to stand in the pocket and just deliver. Like, it's not like, and I said last week, let's not freak out over Justin Fields because they're not scoring a bunch of points. And I know they only put up 20 today. But today, just watching the game, he took a big step today in the way he played quarterback.
He had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, and compared to the previous 2 weeks. He's looking to pass first, whereas before he wasn't. And I don't care what anybody says. I watched the film. In Chicago, he wasn't reading the play, wasn't reading the defense. He wasn't seeing the field well. Now, maybe that's because of Chicago, but I'm just saying.
Right. Well, and that's probably true because, you look at who's over there now, Caleb Williams, right? And you think, well, maybe it's not just the quarterback.
Right. It's like the Spider-Man meme, where they're pointing at each other. Like, what's the difference?
That's right. Yeah, they're all the same. But that's what I mean by Russell Wilson qualities. Not necessarily the play style of Russell Wilson, but just the mentorship and the seniority and the experience in the game that Russell Wilson has translating to Fields on the field.
Confidence,
weird statement
too.
To say. But yes. Yeah, confidence goes along with that, right? I think that you're starting to see Justin Fields, who could actually be an NFL caliber quarterback.
Absolutely.
For a franchise for the long haul.
Isn't it just amazing how big of a difference a quarterback plays when they're with someone that believes in them? Look at Justin Fields, Chicago, when he knew he was a lame duck quarterback, to now where Mike Tomlin has his back, where he says, you're our quarterback, we're rolling with you. Look at Malik Willis in Tennessee. He looked like he couldn't start college ball. And now Matt LaFleur has him looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league after 2 weeks. It just shows how much coaching matters in this league, man. It is everything. And you put Justin Fields with a good defense, a good offensive coordinator, and like you said, a genius in Mike Tomlin. He looks great. And Steelers' next few games, Colts, Cowboys, Raiders, those are all winnable games. The Steelers are in a really good position right now.
Which brings me to my final point of discussion, the AFC North. This wasn't on the script, but again, I'm going to bring it to you. You look at these other teams in the AFC North. You have the Bengals, question mark. We'll get some of those answers probably tomorrow night, Monday night. You get the Browns, awful team. Like, we just know it. The fact that they have one win is miraculous to me. Then you have the Ravens, a team who has not won by more than a touchdown, more than 7 points, and they've barely squeaked out wins here and there. Somehow they, I say wins, they've only won one game. My bad, today against the Cowboys. And they almost found a way to lose that, by the way. And we'll talk about that later too. But do you think that going into week 8, week 9, later on in the year, we get double-digit weeks in, are the Steelers still atop this AFC North? Because as of right now, I don't see any team that's capable of overcoming them at this point.
It's a little too early for me to go there. I mean, it's looking good the way the schedule is. I still like Baltimore, though, and I'm not giving up on Cincinnati. We're recording this before the Monday night game, so we don't know. I think it's too early to say. Is there a chance the Steelers are still atop the division? Yeah. I mean, they're in the best position, but I wouldn't hand the division to them yet. I think this one's going to be competitive as we get into the later weeks of the season.
Tristan, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, more like the Dallas Can't Boys, if you know what I mean. They fall below 500 today, losing in a oddly close one with the Ravens where it shouldn't have been.
Right.
But they look like a terrible team, and Jerry Jones just simply can't afford Derrick Henry is what he said. So, did you hear that, by the way?
No.
That's what he said in one of the interviews after the game. He just couldn't afford Derrick Henry. Don't know what the question was to that, but the fact that he even said that period was...
They asked him what he had for breakfast this morning, and he said, I can't afford Derrick Henry. Get off my back.
That's right.
His dick's 8 inches long.
Okay.
You saw the video, right?
No, I have no idea what about.
Oh, there was a video going... I don't know if I'll keep this in or not, probably. There was a video. Jamie Foxx went live with Jerry Jones, and they were talking about a player, and Jerry Jones doesn't know they're live. Jamie Foxx was like, yeah, I'm hanging out with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is like, yeah, he's good. He's like 4.340. He's like 60-inch vertical, 8.5-inch
Jerry Jones said that?
Swear to God, go look it up on Twitter.
Oh my gosh, is he senile or just funny? I can't decide.
I'm probably a little of both.
Let's talk about the Cowboys a little bit, though. To you, they're below 500 right now. They look like a terrible team. They can't run the ball. They have awful run defense. They have penalties. They like to play catch up in the fourth quarter, and that's how they play games close. Is it time to be worried? Are you sounding the alarm? Is it time to ring the 5-alarm fire bell?
It's funny, like, it feels like most of our segments tonight, and I didn't mean to do this, is like, are you worried about this team? Well, hold on. Are you worried about this team? But that's what these guys are giving us. It's like you kind of are concerned. The main thing for me about Dallas, one, I had them missing the playoffs this year because they didn't do anything the offseason because they couldn't afford anybody, I guess. And they kind of couldn't because they didn't re-sign Dak before the season. They waited till during the season. Well, not trying to retread that. Everything they do is stupid. The Cowboys just aren't good enough to make a deep playoff run. They don't have a running back. Derrick Henry was on the market. Derrick Henry said on the Rich Eisen show, you can go listen to the interview. They never called him. Dallas never even reached out to Derrick Henry. How crazy.
Because Jerry Jones couldn't afford him.
Yeah, apparently not.
But we found that out.
He was too busy going live with Jamie Foxx. Two big points of contingency for the Cowboys that I am worried for sure. Well, I'm not worried because I expected it, but Cowboys fans and the team should be worried. Their rush defense is terrible. I mean, this is basically 3 weeks in a row. They're just getting gashed in the run game. Derrick Henry, 151 yards. Lamar Jackson, 87 yards. Justice Hill, 33 yards. Hell, somehow Zay Flowers had 3 yards rushing, and that was an accident. He was trying to get to the sideline. You pair a horrible rush defense with a non-existent rush offense. Rico Dowdle, 8 carries, 32 yards. Zeke Elliott, 3 for 6 yards. Deuce Vaughn, 2 for 5. They're just such a one-dimensional football team. The defense is not as good as it has been in years past. It has been exposed, and Dak Prescott has to throw it 51 times. Now, they almost got back in the football game because the Ravens just cannot put a football game away in the fourth quarter. They just can't. They refuse to do it. That's the only reason. The Ravens kind of let them claw back into it. But Ryan, they can't beat, the Cowboys can't beat good football teams like this. You cannot fail to run the ball, fail to stop the run, as you said in an earlier segment, especially this year, and be a real contender. You can't.
Yeah, you want to know how to win against the Dallas Cowboys? You just run the ball. That's all.
They're going to let you.
Ball. They will. Hey, right this way, guys. Come on, the touchdown's this way. I'll flip this around and not sound so negative about being worried about every team, right? So I'll pose this question to you, maybe to make it sound a little more enlightening. What do you do? First off, put on your hat. Put on your head coach hat, because I'm about to ask you a really serious question. Become Mike McCarthy. Get in tune with your McCarthy-ness, okay?
Okay.
Are you there?
I'm there.
All right. Week 4. What do you do to fix your deficiencies on the offensive and defensive side of the ball?
I don't have the answer to that question. Yeah, I turn in the towel. I'm not an all-22 guy. You know, I will go and watch it, but I don't want the in the weeds. I just want from like 50,000 feet above. What do you think they need to do? I think we have to, first and foremost, I mean, not to repeat the topic, we have to stop the run. Ryan, they are worst rush defense in the league. They are allowing 185 yards a game. That's worse than the league.
Jeez.
Next, Colts, Rams, Falcons. That is unbelievable. They've allowed 557 rushing yards on the year. This team is terrible.
By the way, those 3 teams have 3 of the best running backs in the league right now.
Exactly. So, I don't know. We can't have, if I'm running the Cowboys, again, this is without going back and watching the tape of the Baltimore game. We can't ask Dak to throw it 50 times a game. Whatever, if we have to try to go trade for someone, we have to go trade for a running back. We have to come up with some kind of better defensive scheme, whether we have to run a bear front, put 5 guys in the front and just let people beat us over the top. I don't know. You have to cut this down because it's not sustainable. And we can't keep drives alive when we have to throw. So you could almost live with the bad rush defense if you could at least run the ball. But when you can't extend drives and really wear defenses down, it just bounces back and hurts you both ways, man. And on top of that, you don't have a lot of receivers you can count on. There was one ball that Dak threw that was a perfect touchdown pass to Brandon Cooks, and he just dropped it. all of these problems for the Cowboys really, to me, go back to the offseason and not bring in enough players. I just don't think they have a good enough roster to compete with the top dogs in the league.
Yeah, their depth is really bad too, especially on their interior defensive line. That's where it's really lacking. But I do think that it's also easy to run on a defense that's gassed because your offense can't find a way to stay out there long.
That's exactly right.
So it goes hand in hand. I think they need to figure out this run game because they've been doing this weird timeshare between Elliott and Darnold, and neither one of the guys are getting comfortable being the guy. Every other team that does a split backfield, you typically have a number one and then you have a number two. There's no number one here in Dallas. Like, I know you can say that it's Elliott, but is he really a number one at this point in the year? No. There's no number ones on the field. There's a whole lot of number two, if you know what I mean. But there's no number ones. There's a problem in the run game. I don't even think Dak's the biggest problem this year. And I'm usually hard on Dak. I don't think Dak's the biggest problem. I think he's doing as best as he can. I mean, he's hitting guys in the hands with the ball. That's what you'd have to ask out of a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if the game's not on his shoulders as much, we would see a much better Dak. Well, we couldn't end the show without talking about your Kansas City Chiefs in the Sunday night game. Sunday night football was not a letdown. My upset alert of the week was the Falcons beating the Chiefs. I almost had it. I was so close, yet so far away. Because even though the score was close, when I'm just breezing over these team stats in the box score, the Chiefs controlled the football game most of the time, it seems. And then also exactly what I said last week I thought would happen, did happen. Pacheco comes out, Mahomes throws the ball for 39 times. And he did pretty good throwing those balls. There's a guy on the team named Rashee Rice. If you hadn't heard about him, you may need to look him up because he's a pretty talented wide receiver.
Not a great driver, but...
Well, let's not talk about that. He doesn't need to drive a car on the football field, right? He just needs to drive his legs, and that's all. So, that aside, though, my biggest question to you, and we can talk about the Falcons, but I do want to touch on the Chiefs because you are a Chiefs fan. I think it's only fair. It's all our show, and we'll talk about the Bills later.
Winners first. Yep.
Tonight, we'll talk about the Chiefs. Are you less concerned now, seeing that Pacheco's gone and the Chiefs still pulled out a victory against a really good Falcons team? Are you still concerned about the overall running game of the Chiefs? Do you think that Patrick Mahomes can take them the way and put the game on his shoulders like we saw him do early in his career and not have to rely on the run game as much?
I definitely think Patrick Mahomes can put the team on his shoulders. He's shown that. Obviously, they were able to run the ball really effectively tonight. Way more effectively than I thought they could.
Yeah, but it still wasn't Pacheco level. Like, let's agree with that, right?
It was not Pacheco. But Carson Steele, 17 carries for 72 yards. I mean, like, he is not as fast as Pacheco, but he is a bruiser. He can run people over. With that said, if you look at team stats, the Falcons are one of the worst rush defenses in the league, like bottom 7, bottom 8. So I don't want to take too much away from the Chiefs running the ball here. And even with that said, Mahomes did throw the ball 39 times. I thought most of the game Mahomes looked a little off. I was texting you. He was missing the first quarter, 2 quarters. He threw a bunch of passes behind. Like, he missed throws he doesn't usually make. He just didn't look like his normal self. He started to get in the groove and get better. I kind of feel like I have felt about the Chiefs. Rashee Rice is a stud. Patrick Mahomes is going to carry you. The identity of the Chiefs to me still is the defense. Their defense is spectacular. This is a Spags team, and Patrick Mahomes manages the game and does what he has to do. But we saw a different Chiefs win tonight, Ryan. Usually, when Mahomes got the ball back at the end of the game, you're like, okay, here we go. He's going to drive downfield and score as time expires in the game. They went 3 and out. 3 and out. And when that happened, I got a little worried. And the Falcons, thanks to penalties and the Chiefs being sloppy, the Falcons got back down into the red zone, and the defense is what won the game. Won the game on a defensive stop where Nick Bolton read it perfectly, got in the backfield, and tackled Bijan Robinson. What makes the Chiefs so scary is not just Mahomes, it is the team. They are playing like the Patriots dynasty. They are a complete football team. When one area falters, the other lifts them up. Mahomes and the offense wasn't spectacular tonight. They were all right, but the defense elevated them. They made the plays when they needed to, and they held the Falcons to 17 points. Regardless of what happened in this game, you just know the Chiefs are going to be contenders because they're well coached. Their special teams are fantastic. The game almost went awry very quickly when on a punt, the ball almost went over the punter's head, and Matt Araiza, the guy that the Bills cut because of a BS scandal, jumped up, got it, and was able to get the punt off. The Chiefs are a complete football team. It's not flashy. It's not pretty. They've obviously trying to deal with the loss of Pacheco, but they are a problem, and they're just well coached, and they're just talented everywhere.
When somebody has to step up on the Chiefs, that person does it. Tonight, Nick Bolton was the star to me.
Yep.
He stopped that final, and we can go back and look, and the fourth down, the going for it to try to win the game. I personally believe that you had to go for it at that point.
I agree. There was only like 5 minutes left. I wouldn't, yeah.
There's 5 minutes left against Patrick Mahomes. You try to take as many points as you can.
Right. We trying to win, or we trying to, not lose? I like
in hindsight, you could have taken the field goal there and came back and took an easy field goal, and probably your chances of winning increased dramatically if you would have done it that way.
But Kansas City had been driving all night. I mean,
That's
they had been going
the 3 and out.
downfield.
I think the 3 and out surprised the Falcons. I can't believe that we held Mahomes to a 3 and out, and
that was only because Xavier Worthy quit running. Like Xavier Worthy was open, and he just stopped his route. So
that I texted you. I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah,
there? That
weird.
was very weird. But I will say that the Chiefs, as good as they are, they don't need to get comfortable. And I think that's one of the things they do great every week is they do not get comfortable. Like they may fight. The Chiefs don't have runaway games often.
They never do.
Like you said, they don't cover the spread well. But I think that especially with Pacheco gone, they need to figure out how to utilize Carson Seal and P. Ryan a lot more in teams that are going to be tougher at covering the run than the Falcons are.
I agree, and I think it's funny because you think, Travis Kelce dependent. This team's really dependent on Rashee Rice, man, especially with Hollywood Brown being out for the season. This would be a completely different team with Hollywood Brown. It makes me sad, not just as a Chiefs fan. It probably makes you sad, one, because you predicted it, but two, because like the whole offseason, it's like, let's see what this offense looks like with Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. Well, you lost that. Credit to Juju for stepping up. I know he's not the player he used to be, but he still makes plays for the Chiefs when they need him to. But Rashee Rice is a baller. Here's a question I want to throw at you real quick.
All right.
As an outsider, and I know we've kind of seen this before, what we thinking about Travis Kelce? Because he's been a ghost this season.
He's definitely the number 2, floating into the number 3 guy on the team.
Yeah.
As far as receivers go, you definitely Rashee Rice. By the way, as a Rashee Rice fantasy owner, I'm so glad Hollywood Brown's not here.
Yeah,
but otherwise, I would like to see the offense with him. But I do think that Travis Kelce is they're doing one of two things. Either he's regressing truly, or two, like they do a lot, like you had mentioned a couple episodes ago, they save him for the playoffs. But even tonight, there was a situation I remember the announcer team talking about it where Kelce would generally get the ball and he was open and Mahomes didn't go to him. That was concerning to me.
He got stopped in the backfield on one pass too. He threw it out to Kelce and first guy that got there tackled him. I am obviously not writing him off. I'm like you. He could totally pop in the playoffs, but he is showing his age even more than last year, no doubt.
I think they may be at the point now of saying like, hey, Kelce may have like 3 to 4 great games left in him throughout this year.
Right.
And they may say, hey, well, let's reserve that for, we're probably getting the playoffs, so let's reserve him for the playoffs. I think you may see another level of Kelce be born in the playoffs because you typically do.
That's what happened last year. Yeah.
When he comes alive. And that's what, teams get soft on coverage on him because he hasn't done anything all year, and now he runs all over you.
But with Rice playing like this, you can manage, though. There's
a chance that happens, but I am concerned, though. Like, it is more concerning than it has ever been with Travis Kelce and Mahomes and their relationship on the field, man. It's just not what it used to be.
I agree. I think you're starting to see the age for sure.
Last thing I want to mention, I said we would talk about the Falcons. I do want to give them credit where it's due, because if you're a Falcons fan and you say, hey, now the Chiefs did beat you at home, which kind of sucks, but coming this close to beating the Chiefs is automatically like a tick in the right direction to me. And I think Kirk Cousins looked pretty poised throughout the whole game. That opening pass to Drake London was great, and I think the Chiefs figured it out, and Spags covered Drake London the rest of the game. I know that because I'm also a London fantasy owner.
It was a blown coverage, yeah.
My question to you as a Falcons fan, are you...
As a Falcons fan?
I'm sorry. as a Chiefs fan, looking into the Falcons, like, do you look at the Falcons game tonight and say, hey, like, we didn't win, but man, we came a lot closer than we thought we would? Or are you saying, hey, we should have won that game, there's no excuse for it, like, we need to fix something that's a major problem? Do you think there's a huge problem in Atlanta?
I don't think there's a huge problem, but I would just, if I was the coach, I would be more on that side. Like, we had them and we let, but at the same time, how many teams that play the Chiefs feel that way? How many times do, like, almost everyone they play, everyone the Chiefs play leaves thinking, man, we had them. But that's the way it goes.
You want to come back to the coin toss?
Exactly. It's like you just let them hang around. I thought Kirk Cousins was really good. I mean, his numbers, 20 for 29, 230. The injury doesn't seem to be lingering. It's typical Kirk Cousins. If he has a clean pocket and he can stand in the pocket on platform and deliver, he's going to, tear you up. But if you can pressure him and hit him and disrupt him and get him off platform, off schedule, he will not tear you up. And that's what the Chiefs were able to do, particularly with their blitzes there at the end. What I think really the Falcons should circle as the biggest problem was they weren't able to run. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. 16 of 31 for Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, 16 carries, 31 yards. Tyler Algier got 32 yards there. I think it was basically those last two drives. He was able to pick up some, but it was non-existent. They weren't able to consistently run the football.
1.9 yards per carry for Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
Like, and I'm not even going to say, like, obviously the Chiefs' defense is great. Their rushing defense is great, and Spags calls a great game. He always does. But still, you have Bijan Robinson. You have to figure out a way to utilize him more in these games where it's down to the wire and it's close. Because if the Falcons were up and they couldn't maintain that lead, especially before halftime, they were up, I think, like, what was it, 17-10 or something like that, or 14-10, or
yeah, I think it was 14,
something around there. They could have ran the ball more and taken more time off the clock to put the Chiefs in a tougher position.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't seem to get it going. And when you have to rely on Kirk Cousins, who, hey, is a great quarterback, but isn't Patrick Mahomes, you have an issue. You got to fix that running game. You got to get more yards per carry for Bijan, or at least utilize him in the passing game more than you do.
Well, it's similar to the Dallas talk we were talking about. It's like when you're not able to run the football, the defense also gets to play you differently. Because then the Chiefs defense, if I'm the Chiefs defense, if I'm calling plays, I'm not scared of the run. It's like, because you haven't been a threat. So I get to just play coverage and just blitz you and just defend against the pass. So the Falcons need to try to get that corrected. But I will give them a little, even though this happened later in the game, their center went down. That was a big deal. I think they lost another offensive lineman. So they had 2 new linemen in. Obviously, that's going to create some issues running the football. However, they struggled to run it before that. I think overall, though, the Falcons feel like a solid team. Like, taking the Chiefs down to the wire, barely losing, beating the Eagles last year. The biggest thing for me, if I was a Falcons fan, is I feel good about Kirk Cousins. And I feel good about the Falcons have players everywhere. Judon got hurt too. That was kind of a big deal. You lose your best pass rusher. You're really the only pass rusher that can disrupt Mahomes. But they've got players all over the field. And as we said when we talked about the Saints, they can win this division. The Falcons are in competition with the Saints and the Bucs. Bucs are going the wrong way. Even though the Falcons sit at 1-2, I think they feel like they could be competitive with almost anybody they face. They've got the Saints and the Bucs back to back the next 2 weeks. So the NFC South is going to come into focus really, really fast.
Last thing on the Chiefs, and I promise we'll move on. You have an early bye. You have a week 6 bye. Next week, you guys play the Chargers. Not super concerned. Maybe I should be. Maybe you should be. Who knows?
Well, it depends on if Herbert plays.
The games I'm circling. Week 5, you play the Saints. Mm-hmm. Now, luckily, it's at Arrowhead, so that's good. You go on by the next week, and then you come back to at San Francisco. San Francisco that played today is not going to be the San Francisco that plays week 7. Pending they stay healthy, they'll have a healthier team in week 7. Are you concerned about either one of those games? I know in general, yes, but are you more concerned about one or the other?
Not really. Not particularly. Because,
all right, well, he's got Patrick Mahomes, guys. I guess that's it. Let's just wrap the show.
Sorry. The Chiefs always beat the 49ers. Why would I be scared of them?
Because it's the 49ers, and
we beat them 6 times.
All right. I'll pick another upset alert that week.
No.
I have no problem doing it.
I real honest thing, though, I think it's kind of like the rest of the league. We'll see. We just kind of see how they progress. How do they manage the Pacheco situation? Because I think it's going to be harder to run on other teams than it was against the Falcons. Can they maintain a consistent running game? Is Patrick Mahomes going to have to throw it 40 times? that's going to be kind of a problem. We'll see. But ultimately, I just trust the coaching staff and I trust Mahomes. So they'll get it done.
All right, Tristan, we're wrapping up week 3. Thank you guys for tuning in and joining us for another awesome week of football. We got Monday night coming tomorrow night. I do want to ask you on the close, what division in football are you most excited for throughout the rest of the season?
Most excited? Would it be crazy to say the NFC West?
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be at all.
Ryan, the Seahawks are leading the NFC West.
That's crazy because I think there's better teams than the Seahawks in the NFC West.
Right. The 49ers, the Rams, both at 1 and 2. Cardinals, as well. I don't want to even talk about the ref call in the Cardinals game because it's going to get my blood boiling. Cardinals are in the middle of a rebuild, but they're frisky. Kind of what I thought they'd be preseason. Not a real contender, but frisky. Anybody playing them, it's not a cakewalk.
The Rams pulled off what we thought was the impossible today.
Incredible comeback.
With half of a team. They recruited water boys and offensive coordinators everywhere to come play, and they figured out a way to win. Right. It was impressive. Like, take nothing away from it. Kyron Williams looked great this game. He looked like he was back in action because he's been missing the rest of the year, I think. And look, Stafford had a great game too. Like, it was
of course,
oddly great game for the Rams, missing as many players as they are.
Came back from 2 different double-digit leads, I believe. Missed field goal by the 49ers. 49ers can let them come back. I'm not trying to rain on the Rams parade because I picked them to be my NFC 1 seed, but I just don't like that's not sustainable though with the injuries. Like with Puka and Cooper out and all the offensive line injuries, they're not going to be able to do this every week. So I think the Rams eventually fall to the wayside just because of the injuries. 49ers should climb out of the hole. Although I did think preseason that the 49ers would take a step back, have some regression this year. So far, we're seeing that, and we're seeing the Seahawks look really good under their new head coach, albeit against weaker competition.
What makes the NFC West so fun to watch is because every other division, you have a 1 or 2 team that you think that's probably going to be your division winner or runner-up. This is the only division where it's literally any 4 of them. Any 4 of them, I wouldn't be surprised if they were atop that division when the season ends.
Really? You think Arizona could get there? I don't think they're there yet.
I don't know. I think Kyler Murray is playing on a different level this year, and when that happens, anything's possible. I really do. I think that him and Marvin Harrison, as the season progresses, they're going to get more and more in sync with each other, and I really do believe that this team could be really scary.
I mean, but at this point, you couldn't say would shock you because the way the league is. The league always finds ways to surprise you. The team I'm watching still is the Seahawks because they're undefeated, but they've beaten the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins without Tua. Next week, they go to Detroit to take on the Lions. We're going to see how they stand up there. Then they get the Giants and the 49ers. The Seahawks will be tested over the next 3 weeks, not against the Giants, but against the other 2 teams. And I want to see where they stand. Can they take the fight to the 49ers? Can the Seahawks say, hey, we're here to play. We are competing for this division? Or are we going to look up in 3 weeks and say, and it's Kyle Shanahan's division again? I don't know. I hope it's close.
What a great week of football. Tristan, get us out of here.
All right, man. Thank you. And thank you all for listening to the show. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. We are here having honest, somewhat comedic, water cooler conversations about football, 2 idiots with microphones. We will see you next week. We will have our weekly picks up on Friday. Make sure you check that out and enjoy the week. Be safe, everyone. See you next time. Goodbye.